He was born with a curse and a gift, a mind too sharp for comfort, a soul too aware for peace. Arthur Schopenhauer saw the world not through the rose-tinted lens of hope, but through the brutal clarity of pain. Where others found meaning in noise, he found silence. Where others praised existence, he questioned it. And where others begged for love, he stood alone, shivering in the cold brilliance of his thought. He was not loved in his time. He was not embraced. The world rejected him. But maybe that was fitting, because the world he saw was not one to be loved. It was one to be endured, analyzed, and, if possible, transcended. He called life a pendulum, swinging between pain and boredom. That was Schopenhauer's view of existence in its purest form, and he meant it, not as drama, but as diagnosis. He saw life not as a grand adventure, but as a brutal mechanism driven by an endless blind force he called the will. The will to live, to strive, to reach, to consume. It animates all of nature, all of humanity, all of history. It drives us forward, but never lets us rest. Because the moment a desire is fulfilled, another is born. And so we suffer, not by accident, but by design. To Schopenhauer, suffering is not the exception. It is the rule. It is the core experience of being conscious. We desire, therefore we suffer. We hope, therefore we ache. And even in our moments of triumph, we feel it. The shadow of loss, the emptiness after the chase, the hunger that begins again. He saw this not as cynicism, but as honesty. The honesty no one wanted to hear. While the world obsessed over progress, Schopenhauer saw the wheel turning in place. While others dreamed of utopia, he saw repetition, violence, loss, vanity. And through it all, the genius sat alone, untouched by praise, unmoved by popularity. He lived with misery, not as a burden, but as a companion. He understood that the price of seeing clearly is feeling deeply. And he saw too much. He saw through the illusion of love, the romantic ideal that we seek a soulmate. No, said Schopenhauer, we are not drawn to a person. We are drawn to the continuation of the species. Love, he argued, is nature's trick. The will, using us like pawns, pushing us toward reproduction, using pleasure and affection as bait. It is not sacred. It is biological. It is brutal. And when the trick is done, the veil falls, and we are left disillusioned, heartbroken, betrayed not by our lover, but by nature itself. He did not hate women, though many accused him of it. He distrusted the illusion of femininity, yes, but only as he distrusted all illusions. He saw human nature not as evil, but as blind. And in that blindness, we hurt each other. Men chasing dreams that aren't theirs. Women seeking safety in games they don't understand. No one wins. Everyone suffers. This, he believed, was the truth hidden behind our myths of love, virtue, and meaning. But Schopenhauer wasn't just a philosopher of despair. He was a genius of depth, a seeker of clarity, and a prophet of transcendence. Because he did not end with pain, he tried to go beyond it. If life is suffering, he asked, what can free us? What is the escape from the will? The answer for him was art, asceticism, and compassion. Art, he believed, is a window through which we glimpse a world untouched by the will. In a moment of music or beauty or sublime awe, we forget our desires. We become pure perception. We transcend. And in that moment, however brief, we are free. The will is silenced. And silence, for Schopenhauer, is the closest thing to peace. That's why he worshipped music. That's why he admired the sublime. Because they suspended the madness of the will, if only for a while. He also admired the ascetics, the mystics, the monks, the men and women who said no to desire, who starved the will, who refused to participate in the endless hunger of the world. He saw in them not weakness, but strength, because to renounce pleasure is to renounce pain. To kill the will is to escape the trap. And while most of us are caught in the web, chasing and chasing, the ascetic walks away. But Schopenhauer was not cold. He was not cruel. He believed in compassion, deeply, because he saw in all beings the same will, the same suffering. And to hurt another was to hurt yourself. To show mercy was to honor the shared burden of existence. That is why he loved animals more than people. They suffer, yet they do not deceive. They desire, yet they do not lie. He found in their innocence a kind of truth that humanity had forgotten, and through it all, he remained alone. Not because he wanted to be, but because the world had no place for him. His work was ignored, his lectures were empty. While lesser men were celebrated, he was ridiculed. And yet, he never stopped. He wrote, he studied, he walked through Frankfurt with a poodle as his only companion. He waited, and decades later the world finally caught up. They called him a genius. But by then, the damage was done. The loneliness, the rejection, the years of silence. They had shaped him, hardened him, refined him. And maybe that's what made his voice so powerful. It came not from popularity, but from solitude. Not from applause, but from suffering. He earned his wisdom in the darkness. And that's why it still speaks. Because it is real. It does not flatter. It does not lie. It tells you the thing you don't want to hear, but need to. That your suffering is not a flaw. It is your nature. That happiness, as you chase it, will always escape you. That desire, as it grows, will only birth more need, but also that there is something deeper. That beyond the will, beyond the hunger, beyond the ache, there is stillness, there is beauty, there is peace. Not in achievement, but in release. Not in victory, but in letting go. And perhaps that is the tragedy of the genius. To feel what others refuse to feel. To carry what others cannot bear. To see what others pretend isn't there. Misery, for Schopenhauer, was not a mood. It was a lens. It was a doorway to truth. And genius in his case was not a reward. It was a punishment. Because to be a genius in a world addicted to illusions is to be cursed with vision, to see too much, to feel too much, to walk alone not out of pride, but out of necessity. Because what you see, what you feel, cannot be explained. It must be carried. And that carrying, slow, heavy, relentless, that is where the misery lives. Yet still, he carried it, not perfectly, not joyfully, but relentlessly. He wrote, he spoke, he bled into the page, and through it all, he carved a path for those who could not lie to themselves, for the ones who asked deeper questions, for the ones who saw through the masks of meaning. He offered no false hope, but he offered truth, and in a world built on denial, that is the rarest gift of all. So what do we do with Schopenhauer's misery? We listen to it, not to become hopeless, but to become honest. Because only when we stop pretending can we start healing. Only when we accept the pain can we stop being ruled by it. And only when we silence the will, even for a moment, can we begin to taste the peace that lives beyond it. That was his message. That is his legacy. Not to cheer you, not to comfort you, but to wake you. To say what no one else dares say. Life is suffering, but there is beauty in the clarity. There is power in the knowing. There is transcendence in the surrender. He was not a philosopher for the happy. He was a philosopher for the broken, for the restless, for the ones who have tried to play the game of life and felt only emptiness in the prize. He spoke to the souls who still feel the cold, even in the sun, who still ache, even in victory, who still wonder, even when they have everything they were told would make them whole. He said, "There is no final fulfillment in the world, but there is wisdom in withdrawing from its grip. There is dignity in seeing the trap and choosing not to step in. And there is genius, not in solving life, but in seeing it clearly. So if you feel too much, if you suffer more than others seem to, if your joy always comes with a shadow, maybe it's not a flaw. Maybe it's vision. Maybe it's the same vision that Schopenhauer carried. And maybe, just maybe, your misery is not weakness. It is depth. It is awareness. It is truth. And in that truth, there is a strange kind of peace. Not the peace of ignorance, but the peace of understanding, the peace of surrender, the peace of knowing you are no longer a slave to the will, but a witness, calm, awake, alone, but free. That is the path. That is the genius. That is the man, Arthur Schopenhauer. Misery was his mirror, and from it, he pulled the light